Today, I'll be giving you guys the top 3 mistakes that TV calibrators make when calibrating televisions and selling those to consumers so that you know how the game works and you know how to protect yourself from a not so good calibrator. So smack a like on this video because I'm getting to the point right now. Number 1 on this list, and again, it's not number 1 in importance, it's just the first thing we're starting off with, is going to be they don't use their eyes. They rely 100% on software. Now, when calibrating to a reference standard, that's great and all, but at the end of the day, calibration software can be wrong. See, there are moments where it can tell you things like you're 100% on target, everything is low as far as a delta error is perceived by the software, but you look at it with your own eyes and then you'll notice it has way too much blue, red, or green. Usually some primary color will be way too high and you have to make a little fine-tune adjustments even after that. And I'm telling you, it's happened more often than not that the software can just get things wrong. So it is still a machine. And we have to understand that calibrators that only rely on the machine and take the human element out aren't actually good calibrators and don't actually rely on the calibration skill, more so is the software. Now, the next thing on this list is not using picture processing. They almost always will tell you to turn it off if they're a bad calibrator. And I mean bad calibrator. And it doesn't matter what the picture processing is or how useful it is. If it processes a picture in any way, shape, and or form, it goes off. This is fundamentally wrong, and this is something that I think should be corrected. They don't care what it does. And it could be noise reduction, it could be sharpening, it could be something like motion processing that is super subjective. It doesn't matter, it goes off. If you have somebody telling you to just straight up nerf your TV and throw away all the features you just paid for, they're a bad calibrator and you might want to look for a new one. And last but not least on this list, it is thinking that the expensive tools are everything. They make the profession. You'll see guys like Vincent Teo come out with the crappiest settings you've ever seen in your life. And I put money on that. The crappiest settings you've ever seen with the most bland, washed out images, and then cut to B-roll of expensive equipment because that is how they're making up for their lack of skill. Because 9 times out of 10, when you don't actually have the skill behind what you're selling, you have to fluff up the fact that, you look at me, I've got this expensive thing. The best way I can describe this is imagine somebody who's showing up to, maybe sell you a product and they're supposed to be the successful media guru, this influencer guru. You ever seen those YouTube ads where they're like, I just bought an Aston Martin. You want to know how I did it? Keep watching. It's that kind of mentality brought through in the calibration world. This is his Lamborghini that he's trying to sell you the dream on. I'm the professional calibrator. Look at my equipment. The reality is you can achieve the same results with a $250 colorimeter from X-Rite. I do it all the time with an X-Rite i1 Display Pro. It's nothing fancy, something you can absolutely afford. The only difference between the expensive models and the not so expensive models are speed. You want absolutely blistering razor fast speed, you're gonna go with the more expensive model. If you want something that can go all the way down to really low levels of exposure value, is what it's called, EV, then you're going to go with the more expensive models that can look at something like maybe a 2% IRE and say, oh yes, I can still see it, because 5% and lower on the cheaper models aren't going to pick that stuff up. But that doesn't really matter because you can usually, and it is usually recommended that you do that by eye anyway. And then after that, you can calibrate after all of those other IREs above 5%. So my point being is that 9 times out of 10, they're overselling this because you don't understand that part of the business. You don't understand that it's all just show. Now, they say that some can be more accurate than others, but when you are in programs and in software and you get a delta error of 3 or lower, you have a delta error of 3 or lower. And in English, anything below 3 on the delta error scale, 3 or lower, is imperceptible to the human eye as an error. You won't see any kind of issues. At least so the story goes. I mean, I have seen tons of times where it gave me a reading like that, and I still had to make fine-tuned corrections, but I'm a good calibrator. The reality is, not so good calibrators rely on equipment, they never use their eyes, they turn off picture processing, and they all push the director's intent as an excuse or cover-up for their inability to actually provide you beautiful settings like what you paid for. And then 9 times out of 10, they have the audacity to charge things like $800, $1,000 in some cases, a la carte, per picture mode. they're really not good at what they do, and they want to try to oversell something so they can make money, because really it's a get rich quick kind of scheme. So hopefully this kind of whistle blows and explains the business of calibration as it is. Many of these guys hold on to 30-year-old standards that were created in the 90s. They really should not be being hired at all until they create something that works for modern TVs capable of more. That being said, there is no secret. I sell a service here on this channel where for $5 we can throw a monkey wrench at those guys and their plans to rip you off. Now I can give you awesome settings for many TVs that I review throughout the years here. So if you're interested in that, hey, hit me up and I'll give you a membership link and I got you covered. Read some of the comments from some of the members. I'm the real deal. I'm not just blowing my horn. And for $5, it's practically nothing. It's a cup of Joe, you know what I mean? And you'll be good to go. That being said, I want to thank you guys so much for watching the #1 brand in honesty. If you have any questions, ask them down below. And until the next video, I'll see you guys later.